Hello, everyone. Welcome to Backlisted Book Week. It's a book readathon sponsored by Lindsay's Little Library and Sarah's Nightstand. And if you want to hear what I'm reading for this readathon, stay tuned. So hello everyone and welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I am Miss Thomas. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. I talk about interesting books, or at least books that I think are interesting. And if you're old like me, thanks for coming back. So I've often said that my favorite thing about Booktube is finding out what everybody else is reading and learning about all the different books out there and finding good books to read. And that's very true. But another thing that I really love about Booktube, make sure I've got the right camera. I think this is the camera. Another thing I really like about Booktube is all of the different challenges out there, the readathons and the prompts and the tags. They're really a lot of fun. And so when I saw this prompt or this readathon challenge, it was the Backlisted Book Readathon. I thought, what a great idea. And I love the different prompts. And even though Lindsay at Lindsay's Library and Sarah at Sarah's Nightstand said, you know, they're not the book police and they're not going to come out and make sure we're following the prompts and we're free to do our own thing. I just want to say I like the prompts. I like the structure of the prompts. I would also like to maybe break free from the prompts sometimes, but in this case, I enjoyed the prompts. And so one of the prompts was a book that has pink on it. And I had, there was a name for the pink. It wasn't just pink. It was like marvelously magenta or something. And I really enjoyed looking through my books for something pink. And, you know, if any of you are like me and you have, a pile, a TBR pile, I see a lot of booktubers saying that they want to stop buying books. They want to get through the books they have. So this is a great opportunity for that. So I went through my books and I was looking for pink, and I was really kind of surprised to find that I only had one book with pink on it. And the cover isn't even pink, but the back is. The back has this bright pink square. So I thought it was appropriate to bring it to the beach because it seems that I bought it at the book warehouse on another occasion that I was at the beach. So I love the beach. I go to the beach a lot. So it's called Four of a Kind, and I was drawn in by the teacups, but actually it's the deck of cards that the story revolves around. And Four of a Kind is a story of four women who get together. Their children go to this very exclusive, very expensive private school, and the women are supposed to be a diversity committee. They're supposed to be a group of people that encourage diversity in the school and hire speakers and have meetings and activities to increase diversity. But the truth of the matter is, the women get together and they play cards, hence the card deck. And it just sort of happens. They're supposed to be at the diversity meeting and they are sort of getting to know each other, and they fall into this card game, Texas Hold'em, and they decide to play for secrets instead of money. So doesn't that sound like a fantastic book? I was really intrigued by that. So even though it's my pink book, I guess it could have been my predicted 5-star read book. But I have to tell you, Lindsay, I commented on Lindsay's channel just this week and I said, I read my backlisted book, meh. And she said, well, what did you read? So here you go, Lindsay. I thought Four of a Kind was meh. And the thing about it that I thought was especially meh was that I was reading it and I realized that I read it years ago. I was like over 100 pages in and I thought, wait a minute, I remember this passage. And then as I started to finish the book, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that too. And I remember, so as the book started to end, I realized that I had read this years ago. So I quick looked to see, and it was published in 2012. So I think I must have started reading this in 2012 or around that time when I was a stay-at-home mom. Was I a stay-at-home mom? No, I was probably at that point transitioning into the work world. I was probably going from part-time to full-time. But wow, I just realized I've been working longer than I thought. But this book, if it was in 2012, it probably appealed to me from a stay-at-home mom mentality. The idea of four women, who are moms, who get together and just sort of swap their tales of woe is what the book was about. And the characters were good. I mean, I enjoyed the book enough to say meh, So like, I don't know, 2.5, 3 stars maybe. But the thing is, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, wow, it took me 100 some pages to realize I've read this before. It must not have been a terribly memorable book. So I need to say that going into it. I was also thinking what drew my attention is that it said it was Nancy Thayer recommends the book. So Valerie Frankel is one of a kind. Her novel, Four of a Kind, is by turns moving and hilarious. A great read. Nancy Thayer, author of Heatwave, which I love Nancy Thayer. I wasn't really a big fan of Heatwave, so that maybe should have been my first clue, but I do love Nancy Thayer's books normally. So that's probably why I picked it up in the first place. But the story is about the women. They get together and they play poker, and they're from different walks of life. One woman is, her child got a scholarship to the exclusive private school. She's struggling financially and she's the breadwinner in the family. Another woman is African American and she's a pediatrician. And her husband, he was selling pharmaceuticals, but he lost his job. And so, they have some friction because he's embarrassed about not having a job at this point. And then I think he does jump right back into a job. So that works out. And then there's the very beautiful, very blonde, perfect Bess, who seems to have her life all together. And her mom, I forget the mom's name, but it was definitely like a nod to Gloria Steinem. Her mom, and I think her name was like Gertrude Stein or something now that I think about it. And she was famous for burning pantyhose in the book, right? Because Gloria Steinem burned the bras. So I thought that was a little bit interesting too. But of course, the mom, the feminist mom, she was really ugly to her daughter because her daughter was, a housewife involved in the school and involved in the lives of her children. And that was complete opposite of what her childhood was. And I find that to be true. I think that often we look at our parents and we think of everything they've done as shortcomings and we swing to the other end of the pendulum. And I think there's a mistake to be made in that as well. So you sort of see that in the character Bess. So Four of a Kind, it was engaging enough that I enjoyed it and I finished it, but it was boring enough that I realized 100 some pages in I'd read it before. So I thought that was funny. And I said to my husband and my sons, I said, I can't believe I've already read this and it's taken me over 100 pages to realize that. And my oldest son said, I can't believe you're still reading it now that you know that. But I wanted to see how it ended. And then once the ending started to come back to me, as I was getting to the ending, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this scene. So Four of a Kind is my first backlisted read because of the pink back. Another thing I just need to say, and maybe I shouldn't, I don't know if I want to go here, but when I read it the second time, the biggest problem I had with the book was that the one character, I don't even remember her name. Isn't that funny? And I finished it this week and I've already forgotten the characters. But the one character, she was so disappointed in her marriage because she was the breadwinner and her husband, he had been unemployed and he seemed like a perfectly nice enough guy, but she just was so disappointed in him and she ends up having an affair. And I felt like the book kind of made that out to be something that would be expected. The woman's the breadwinner and her husband's not meeting her needs at home. So of course she would go off and find a younger man. And I don't know, I very much took offense to that. And it was interesting because I wondered as I was reading it, I probably read it, it was published over 10 years ago. So I probably read it 8 to 10 years ago. And I wonder if it offended me then. I'm thinking maybe it didn't, Now I probably read it and thought like, oh, okay, so people have affairs, but that's not for me. But now I read it and I think, that's ridiculous. Oh, boo-hoo. You need to have an affair because why? Your husband doesn't bring in as much money as you. And it offended me. So I thought that was interesting. I wondered how I've grown as a reader. I wish that I was booktubing 10 years ago so that I could look at myself and see how my tastes and how my views may have changed. So in the prompts provided by Lindsay's little library and Sarah's nightstand, one of the other prompts was scripted font, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, that was one of their prompts, scripted font. And I love the cover of this book. Now, I don't have permission from my friend yet. I keep forgetting to ask her, but there's this wonderful friend who gives me books. And she gave me a big bag of books. I just love her to bits. And so I'm at an advantage because if she gave me the books, I know they're going to be good. Or at least I know she thought they were good. So that gives me a little more motivation to read them. But I was looking through the bag of books that she gave me as I was packing for my beach trip. And I just thought that this cover was fantastic. I mean, isn't that just the coolest cover? I love the font. I don't know if you would say scripted font, but I'm calling it scripted font. And Lindsay and Sarah both said that they're not the backlisted book police. So hopefully they're not going to come looking for me. And if they did, I'd just give them a margarita and show them the beach view. But anyway, this is, I think, a beautiful font. And I love everything about this cover. I just thought it was so cool. And I'm a major coffee drinker. So of course I was drawn into this story. And I do confess I haven't finished, because it's only 1 week and I've read quite a bit at the beach. I'm gonna do another video on just my, it's gonna be like a travel vlog, and I'm gonna tell you about all the different things I've read. So this is just my backlisted portion of this trip. But I am on page 261, chapter 77, but look at that font. Isn't that beautiful? I love every chapter starts like that, and then the first letter of the font, the first letter of the page starts like that when you begin a new chapter. And this is a really fun book. This is probably another one that I'll forget a few years from now, but it's fun. It's the story of a coffee barista and all the different coffee baristas. And they have this wonderful little coffee shop. And I think that there's a series, it sounds like, and I'm going to find out. The other thing, I digress, but the authors are a husband and wife, much like the author of The Unheard. I forget the name. Nikki French, I think. I will look into that because I enjoyed that book too, and that was also authors. And I mentioned that. It was a husband and wife author team like this one. So here's a husband and wife author team, Cleo, Coyle. And this book is just so fun. It's the story of these people in this coffee shop. It's this woman and her ex-husband and her ex-mother-in-law, and the three of them own this business together. And they have a grown daughter who runs another portion of the business in Washington, D.C. Now, this coffee shop is in New York. So if you like, that vibe of a coffee shop in New York, and there's like slam poetry night and all these fun things that go on until, I want to say someone is murdered, but that's not exactly what happens. I was reading this and it did say that there would be a murder. So in the beginning, I was kind of like, this isn't quite a murder, but eventually someone was murdered. So I don't want to give too much away, but I will tell you, they're in the coffee shop when this girl gets really angry at this man that she met online, and she fires a gun at him. But come to find out, it's a gun she stole from like a set for a performance, and it just had blanks in it. So she was just trying to scare him and humiliate him because he humiliated her. But then he becomes a murder victim later. He's murdered later, and she is arrested. So you have to get pretty far into the book, though, before that happens. So I don't know that I would exactly call it a murder mystery, although there's another murder earlier in the book. They find a body floating in the water, and so I'm guessing the two are connected. The two appear to be connected, and I am really enjoying this book. I lost my place. I'll have to go back because I think I said what page number I was on. But I am really enjoying this book and I will finish it today. And I will look to see if there are other books by this author. Like I say, it's pure fluff. It's just people in a coffee bar, really fun characters, some somewhat funny scenes. It's about people who, they go to the coffee bar. It's become named as like some hot spot for online dating. Of course, the app is called Cinder, and then people get on Chatter. I thought that was funny. They get on Chatter and they chat instead of, I guess, Twitter where they would tweet. But it was a really fun book about different people in the coffee house, and they would meet their online date in the coffee house, and sometimes it would work out, but usually it wouldn't. Oh, and you know what? I will share with you, there was a passage in here, they had a poetry slam where they talked about in the poetry slam, they had different people share poetry about their hookup dates, and most of them were negative. So there was some funny ones here. Here's the first one. It's called Unrelated. I watched an older dude, but he was still hot. We met at a bar and he smiled a lot. He said, "You look like her." I asked, "Who?" "Your cousin. We were married in 2002. They'd split by now and weren't even speaking. Too young to remember. I couldn't stop freaking. You want me, I know," he said with a wink. I covered his head with my 2-for-1 drink. So they have like a poetry slam, and there's a couple of funny little poems in the book. That's only one chapter where they have the funny poems, but I got a big kick out of that too. So maybe that's what I should do for Poetry Thursday. Maybe I'll read one of these. I guess it would be a poem written technically by the husband and wife, Cleo, Coyle, but I did enjoy this book. And so that's my second backlisted book that I want to talk about in this video. And I want to say thank you again to the Booktube community, because this is such a fun thing to be a part of. And I especially want to thank Lindsay at Lindsay's Little Library and Sarah at Sarah's Nightstand for this wonderful readathon. Bye for now.